What's up, everyone? It is Tuesday, July 7th. We are live at 5. I'm Paul Wontorek.
And I'm Michael James Scott. Yes.
How you doing, MJS?
I'm good, boo. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy you're here because that must mean there's a bunch of fantastic people in our green room waiting to go on. So let's say hello to Caitlin Moynihan.
Hello.
Yes. Hi.
How's everybody doing?
Who's here today, Michael?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's so ridiculous in the most amazing way. We have the gorgeous Adrienne Warren, the gorgeous Nikki Renée Daniels, the gorgeous Amber Iman. It's amazing. I'm so excited, y'all.
The gorgeous Michael James Scott.
Oh, well, thank you.
Tis true.
Mm-hmm. We will get to all that fierceness, but first, today's news. Oh, sorry, Caitlin.
Kick me out.
Sorry.
It's because I have to say something sad. That's why you kicked me out, right? Oh. Yeah. So over the weekend, we lost Broadway favorite and an incredible person, and Nick Cordero. So we're gonna honor him right now.
Yeah, this is really tough. Obviously, we weren't on yesterday, so we didn't share the news yesterday. I know most people know the horrible news. Nick Cordero did die on Sunday morning after over 3 months in the hospital, which started with a fight with COVID-19. His wife, Amanda Klutz, announced on social media his death, and obviously she's been sort of this incredible beacon of information and inspiration and hope, and she's really sort of shared the entire journey this whole time. He was hospitalized in Los Angeles. They had just moved out there. They have an adorable boy, Elvis. And 3 days ago, CNN actually announced that Nick would probably need a double lung transplant, which I didn't even know was a thing. But this was a really tough medical battle. Nick first made a big splash. He was in The Toxic Avenger off Broadway, and then he was in Bullets Over Broadway, and he was so good as a tap dancing mobster. Mm-hmm. Got a Tony nomination for that. And then he went on to have a big juicy role in A Bronx Tale on Broadway. He was also Earl in Waitress. He was in a really fun musical off Broadway called Brooklynite. He was in Little Shop of Horrors at Kennedy Center. He was on TV's Blue Blood, which I haven't seen, but I saw all the other things. Nick Cordero, and just one of the sweetest men, honestly. This was heartbreaking for everybody, and this is the big COVID-19 Broadway story, the Broadway connection. So rest in peace, Nick Cordero, only 41 years old.
So sad. Gosh.
So sad. And while we are waiting for Broadway to return, this Tony winner is giving us a glimpse inside her process.
Yes, she is, y'all. Miss Anais Mitchell, who won a 2019 Tony Award for creating Hadestown score, is releasing a book about her creative process. Working on the song, the lyrics of Hadestown will take readers inside Mitchell's more than decades-long journey of building the musical from the ground up. That's really exciting. Detailing her inspiration and breaking down the show's lyrics. The book is available for pre-order and officially comes out on October 6th. Hadestown marked songwriter Mitchell's Broadway's debut. She was also nominated for 2019 Tony Award in the category of Best Book of a Musical. Prior to Broadway, Mitchell nabbed a 2017 Lucy Lortel Award nomination for her work on Hadestown's off-Broadway debut. That's really exciting.
Well, and Hadestown had a crazy journey. It was originally done as a traveling show in the woods somewhere. And then, it literally had right?
Yes.
And then every place that they did a production before it got to Broadway was the production was always different. They kept changing it radically.
Right.
And then Andre DeShiel showed up, and it was all cement. So that's all you need, Andre DeShiel, and you're good.
Yes, and just when we found out a few weeks ago that we won't have Broadway for the rest of the year, Actors Equity approved these two theaters will be allowed to reopen this year.
Yeah, so these ladies run theaters up in the Berkshires. And so we found out that, it's interesting. Theater is creeping back. Actually, there's a non-equity theater near my house in the Catskills that's doing Midsummer Night's Dream and A Chorus Line outside. So, some theaters are starting. Yeah, it's interesting. But in terms of actors' equity, they obviously have been really leading the way, making sure conditions are safe and really sort of paying attention to every theater's requests. And so 2 theaters in the Berkshires, the Barrington Stage Company and the Berkshire Theater Group, got permission to do performances this summer. So they are the first theaters that are able to use equity talents. And so Barrington Stage Company is doing the one-man show, Harry Clark. So obviously you can kind of see it's literally one actor and a stage manager. And they're doing theirs inside, but with limited people in the seats. And the Berkshire Theater Group is doing Godspell in Stockbridge with a cast of 10 and 2 equity stage managers. And that one is happening outdoors. So this is kind of interesting experiment, right? I mean,
wow.
We'll
I'm so looking forward to seeing what comes out. I know. Wow. Okay.
And I know other things are happening in drive-in movie theaters and, different sort of non-traditional spaces, and people need their theater, right? They need, so we'll see. It's all creeping.
Michael Arden just did a whole thing, which I'm sure I'm looking forward to hearing about all of that, because I know a lot of those folks. So I can't wait to find out more. It's been very secretive.
I'm waiting. I can't get invited. I beg.
Invite only.
I'm begging to go see that.
Yes, I'm like, okay, I want to know what's going on.
Okay, you know what though? Enough of us. This is too much. Michael, it's time to bring the ladies in.
It is time to bring the ladies in. Yes.
I'm gonna head out and have fun and
all righty, you two.
Do your thing. We're
going to do our thing. Get out of here. Love y'all. Okay, everyone. I am so excited to be back. Welcome back to another episode of Hashtag Live at 5 with me doing some roundtable discussions. Michael James Scott doing some roundtable discussions with some of my, just some of the most fiercest people of color in our business. And just we are chatting it up. Today is really exciting because I have 3 amazingly talented, gorgeous leading ladies in our Broadway community. And so let's get them in and let's get it going. Please welcome the lovely Adrienne Warren, the lovely Nikki Renée Daniels, and the lovely Amber Iman. What's going on right now?
Amber and I are all dancing on Zoom.
I love it. We're all just like giving you.
Get in there.
First of all, I'm living because, okay, well, you know what? Let me just start off. Let me just give the rundown. Let me brag on you fierceness ladies. Let me give the whole rundown real quick. Hold on. So Nikki Renée Daniels is set to star as Jenny in the Marianne Elliott-helmed company revival that was forced to go on, yes, there she is, on hiatus before opening due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Previously, Daniels has starred on Broadway in the Book of Mormon, the Gershwins Porgy and Bess, Anything Goes, Aida. I mean, literally, like, I could keep going and going and going, and you would be like, what's going on? She recently played Angelica Schuyler in the Chicago production of Hamilton. There she is. Yes. Come on, Miss Nikki Renée. Then we have the lovely Amber Iman. She was most recently seen on Broadway in Shuffle Along, or the making of the musical sensation of 1921 and all that followed. Okay. And she made her debut as Nina Simone, okay, in Soul Doctor. Okay. She also appeared as Peggy Schuyler and Peggy. Yes. In the Hamilton National Tour, Iman is a co-founder of the Broadway Advocacy Coalition and Black Women on Broadway.
Yes, logos. Yes, logos.
Come on. Now, the last but certainly not least is the gorgeous, lovely Miss Adrienne Warren. She has been playing the title role in Tina, the Tina kind of musical. It made its Broadway. Come on now with that photo, because it's made its debut in the West End. Her powerhouse performance earned her a 2019 Olivier nomination. I saw it. She was everything. Her Broadway credits include Shuffle Along, or the making of the musical sensation of 1921 and all that followed, and Bring It On. Warren is also a co-founder of the Broadway Advocacy Coalition. Yes. Y'all, I am so excited to have y'all here. Upon my research on some of you, you know, where you're coming from, I realized we have a panel of Southern ladies today, which I love. We got our Southern girls here, which I'm so excited about. So I want to just get on into it. I want to get in it. I wanted to have a discussion with the three of you because, and specifically, you know, you three, because you all are leading ladies in our industry and in our Broadway community, and you happen to be Black leading ladies. So I'm living for that, and I want to talk about it. And this has been so wonderful on Broadway.com to be able to have this platform and us to be able to chat. And I thought, let's do it, and let's chat with you three about it. So, Yes. I want to start off from, this is a question for the three of you. When each of you started out in your careers, how did you start to manage the Black woman box that so many women of color face right away? I know it's a big question to start off, but it's three fierce women, so let's start it off. So why don't Miss Nikki, Renee, why don't we get on into it? For you?
Well,
Go for it.
I think I'm the elder stateswoman.
Oh my God. Here we go.
So, you know, when I first moved to the city, it was like early 2000s. The only actress you really saw being colorblind cast or racially conscious cast is Audra. You know, there wasn't a lot of people of color in leading roles, especially ingenue type roles, which is what I felt like was more of my niche. So from the beginning, I always pushed to get seen for stuff, you know, Christine and Family Opera stuff. But even though I knew there had never been a Black person in the role before me, I really tried to, if I saw the breakdown, remember when everyone used to get the breakdowns emailed to them? If I saw something that I felt like I was right for, regardless of the color of the role, I would just call my agents and try to go for it. And a lot of times it didn't work out for me. A lot of times I'd be the only Black person at the audition, which often told me they probably weren't thinking of going a different way with the role, but I just kind of kept at it. And sometimes it worked out in my favor.
Yeah. Work. I love you for going right into it. I know I literally I basically just was like, and go. But
I'll go. I think, you know, for me, I started off, the first show I did out of school was The Wiz. And then the show I did after that was Dreamgirls. So I've been in Black shows for, you know, most of my career, for most of my career. So I didn't really understand fully what it meant to move in this industry and exercise in this industry as a Black woman, as a Black artist for a while. Because I had the support of, you know, my community behind me in all of these incredible shows. So I was just soaking up the energy of Black theater community coming in early on. And it wasn't until a little bit later, it wasn't until I was really, honestly, my Tony nomination that I was able to actually see, oh, this is kind of crazy. You walk into these rooms and you're the only one there. And how do you have to think about that, and then how do you move in that space without feeling like the entire culture is on your back? And the truth is that it feels like it is. But I remember in those moments that I am not alone in that battle. Like there have been so many people who've come before me, the Audras, the LaShances, the Nikkis, the like people that have been here who they are a product of me. They're a thread.
She's so fierce.
Oh, I think she cut out a little bit. She cut out a little bit. We'll get you back in a second when you come on back.
I froze.
There we are. She's back. She's back. She's back.
Pay my internet bill. Okay. So those people are a fabric of me as a thread in the fabric of me as an artist. So like they are a thread in the fabric of me as a human being too. Like I can because they did and they are. So when I'm in those rooms, I held my head as high as I possibly could because I know that that I am not alone in that fight, in that sense. And so I just do my best to make the decisions within my career now that I have the opportunities to make decisions about what I want to work on, that I feel like I'm working on things that I'm passionate about, that I feel like I'm working on things that push the needle forward, that I feel like I'm working on things that are going to create a foundation that will be stronger and more equitable for a generation after me. And that was what I focus on. Period. And like, I don't even care how the industry sees me and how I feel like I should fit in it. I'm trying to find that I'm going to fit in this industry because I am me fully. And that is how I focus right now. And the only reason I can truly do that is because of all of those women that I mentioned.
100%.
Yes. Yes.
Speak truth, Adrienne Warren. Speak truth, Nikki and Renee Daniel. For me, as you were talking, Adrienne, I was thinking about the fact that if I go back to high school, I went to a predominantly white high school. And in my senior year, a role was taken from me because the high school, everyone who sat on the board of directors looked back at the roles that I had played. I had been a witch in Macbeth. I had been an urchin in Little Shop. And I had been like a servant in another show. And they were worried that the community would think they were racist because of the roles that I had played. So they took me from a role that was perfect for me and wanted to put me in a role that was unfit for me because they were worried about how they would look to their community. And that experience fueled me to be like, I need to go to Howard University, somewhere where I'm among the majority. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Howard and I had a completely different experience, right? Now I'm one of several. And as empowering as it was the first time I had been surrounded by that many amazing, strong Black women. And I feel like at times I was overwhelmed by that, right? So I was so glad to be in that community. But then when I graduated and came out into the real world, it was like, okay, let me find my place. And as a Black woman who is 5'11" and is not skinty, there was always an expectation when I walked into the room that I might sound like a Fantasia or Jennifer Hudson. And I remember being like, that's not my lane and that's not my soul. And how do I express that? Because I need to eat. And I need to start building a reputation in New York City, but I also want to be honest and true to who I am, and I want to find a way to carve my own niche and my own path for myself. So when it came to these boxes, I felt that the only way to speak to that was to be as truthful and as honest as I could be. And when certain roles came in, it would pain me, but I had to learn to speak up to my agent and say, so this is what I see for myself and this is what I want, and I hope you understand that, and I hope together we can build. And in learning who I was and in learning what I would stand for and in learning and this is what I want the shape of my career to look like, I had to like come into my own and learn my worth and learn, every now and then, Amber, you have to take a gig that you don't want because you need to eat, but that's okay. Because your heart is in the right place and this is but a stepping stone to the next thing. And I think about sometimes people are like, how did you get to that point where you stood up and you spoke out and you said no? And it was like, I just had to follow my heart. And I had to know that whenever I say yes to a role, I want to be able to commit 100%. I don't want to show up to work mad. We've all shown up to work mad, and I don't want to do that. You mad at work, you can't bring your best. You're in the corner, you're gossiping, you're eating chips. You're not happy. You don't want to be eating chips. So I just felt like I owed it to myself to give myself the chance and the opportunity to be my best self. And that can only happen when I embrace who I am. Because for a long time, I was like, I need to find an expensive voice teacher because I need to learn how Jennifer Hudson sounds like that or how Fantasia sounds like that. I was trying to fix those things about myself so that I could fit into those boxes because I thought that's what was for me. And I don't know what clicked. I don't know at what point I freed myself and said, you know what, this is who I am and this is what I do. And I have something to offer to the world that's a little bit different, and I'm okay with that. But whenever that clicked, thank God that it did, it just kind of a weight dropped off of me. And I'm like, somebody is going to figure out what to do with me. You know what I'm saying? And until then, I'm just going to continue to do me and continue to figure out where I fit. And if I don't fit anywhere, I'll build my own table with my own wood. I think
your own wood
with my own, and chop down my own tree.
Okay.
So when I think about that box, it's like, you know what? I've just always been trying to not even look at it, not even see it, just to keep moving in the direction that I feel like I've been set out to move in.
I have a question for Amber. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did you find that when you let go of what you thought was expected of you and were more authentic to what your gifts were, that you tended to do better in auditions and that more opportunities came your way?
Here's the thing, because Tanya Pinkins said it, sometimes when you finally get to that point where you make that decision about what you won't do, all those things come to you more. Because now and I found that that's exactly what happened. When I was like, this is who I am, this is what I'm not going to do, 17 of those jobs came in, and I said, oh my God, I have to pay my bills. What am I going to do? And
I love it.
I knew it was a test. And I mean, there were moments when the fear was overwhelming. And because I was like, maybe I made that decision. Maybe that was the wrong decision. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I've done this, the whole thing, I've done it the wrong way. But I know it's a long game. So at the time I was like, I was uncertain, but I know that in the future, I'm going to look back and know I made the best decision. I felt better in rooms. I felt more like grounded, and I felt more in control. But girl, no, it was.
See, I think that you three are examples, as what my mama said, is know your ministry. And I feel like you all are, speaking of Black Broadway, why is Norm Lewis calling me right now?
We busy, Norm.
Norm, this is an outrage. I'm talking to the ladies right now. Good Lord. That is hilarious. But I feel like the three of you really, obviously through trials and tribulations, if you will, but know your ministry. And so I am curious for you all, and this is for all three of you, in terms of however you want to go, who wants to ever go first. But what challenges, though, for specifically as a Black leading lady, that you specifically had to sort of deal with, sort of setting boundaries when you start, like when you either start a show or in negotiations throughout your career, that you found from specifically from the color of your skin? Like, do you feel like there were specific things that you look back now and you're like, I don't think I realized that was maybe it's been an issue, but maybe it was because of me being a Black woman. Are there any of those sort of like things that you had to really come in and really set boundaries for yourself or the others around you?
Amber's like itching. So first of all, I have to say this, Michael, just because it is my reality. When you text me and we're like, would you like to be on this leading ladies panel? I was like, I'm not a leading lady on Broadway. Why do you call me? And that's why it took so long to respond. I was like, I think I can be on your panel, but I don't know why you call me. But it's like, I don't even think of myself in that way. And that's on me. That's something I have to work on. Because when I think about it, the time that I was a leading lady on Broadway was my first show. It was Soul Doctor, which closed in 99 glorious days. And my life kind of changed overnight. A lot of people don't know this, but Nina was to be played by India.Arie. She had signed on, she was doing it. It was hers. When I was auditioning to stand by for her because naturally she was releasing an album. She was only going to do like 5 shows a week. So when I got the gig, and I got the call the day before rehearsal started, like at noon. And they were like, great, you got the show. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to stand by on Broadway. Oh my God. And my agent called me back that night at 7:00 and he said, are you sitting down? And I said, well, you called me to tell me I was on Broadway. Are you calling to tell me I'm off? Did they make a mistake? And he was like, apparently India.Arie dropped out 2 months ago. You're actually Nina, like you're starring on Broadway. Like, do you know what this means? Do you need a dress? Do we need to send you a car? So and I was like, what? So my introduction as a leading lady on Broadway was like, I hit a wall. It was overnight. In fact, if you ask any of my cast members, I didn't speak to anyone for the first week because I was petrified. I thought I was being punked, and I thought that they were going to take it away from me and be like, fine, India's back. So I refused to talk to anyone because I was like, let me not get to know these people because this is not my gig. People would greet me and I'd be like, I walked into my leading ladyship petrified. And one of the things that I do remember is I was fortunate. I had done maybe a workshop with Sean's, Lilius White. And one of the first things I did was I called them and I said, I am petrified. I don't know what to do. Can you give me any tips? And Lilius told me to carry my own Sharpies. Harriet D. Floyd said, if they have a party, go stay for 45 minutes and go home. Leave them wanting more. One of the other women said, you got a boyfriend? Talk to him on Sunday night so your throat can heal all Monday. Like, these Black women telling me the most hysterical things of what to do and what not to do. So I'm going into this moment like feeling like I've got these Black women who've given me this power and this knowledge. I'm still petrified, but like I feel grounded. And I'll never forget, I told the story on Facebook that the producers invited me to a meeting. And they stood me on the stage at Circle in the Square, and they had a marketing idea because we were performing to mostly white empty houses. And they wanted to send me to Harlem to sing at different churches as Nina Simone. And I was like, okay, Nina didn't really have any gospel hits, but okay, tell me how y'all want to work this. And I said, would you mind telling me why this is the marketing strategy? And they said, well, we send out flyers, but Black people don't read. But if we send you to Harlem and sing, they'll listen. 5 white men in a circle around me. And
what did you do in that moment?
I had 3 like, I was but here I am. I have been in New York a year and a half. I was 27. I can't describe to you what that made my soul feel like. I have called on every Black woman I know to empower me, to educate me, to lift me, and here I am alone in a room of white men who are in control. These are the producers. This is where the money is coming from. And my whole soul broke that day. I remember in that moment, I asked them to give me a day to think about it. And I ended up writing them a letter and saying I would not do it because I didn't have the power to say that in front of them in that moment. So when I think about how I've moved and navigated from that point on, is thinking that they don't know me, they don't know about me, they don't know about us, they don't care for us. Like I just have this it's like a filter that when I walk into the room, I just naturally am aware that something is probably going to happen. Someone is probably going to say something. Let me be guarded and armored at all times. I always think something unfair is going to happen to me because I've had too many friends who have been lied to, who have been cheated out of money, whose contracts have been 3 times less than their white counterparts. There have been too many stories. So when I walk into these rooms, into these meetings, into these auditions, I don't even really get to enjoy the fullness of where I am and what's happening because I feel like I'm always doing this. I'm waiting for one of y'all to say something dumb to me and I got to go into defense mode. So it is a challenge. I would love to be able to just go to work. I would love to be able to just tell the story, and we haven't gotten there yet. And I wonder how lighter I would be. I wonder how much happier I would be if we had those opportunities. I wish I didn't have that. I wish I wasn't so jaded. I wish I wasn't so unhappy and just naturally waiting for the doom. Like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop because it's happened so many times. So for me, now that I'm aware of that, I try to tear it down a little bit. You always got to keep your eyes open. That's just natural. That's just being a human being, a Black woman in America. But I want to get to a point where we don't have to walk in carrying that much every day.
Well, the awakening that is happening right now is something that is historic in our community, as we all are experiencing, obviously in our country, but even more specifically in our community, is pretty powerful. So that's something I actually want to, at the end, that there's want to come back to sort of like the things that we want to do after pandemic, and sort of taking that. So that's going to be a table. But for Adrienne and Nikki, what about for you all in terms of boundaries and sort of what Amber was discussing? What has that been like for you all?
Yeah, I mean, I could name a lot of different circumstances. One that comes to mind specifically is, funny you say last minute replacement. I was doing a workshop, and like the day before it started, they were like, Deborah Cox dropped out. We need someone. So I came in, and it was a story about, it was set in New Orleans in like the early 1900s. And it was a story about a quadroon singer. And, you know, of course, it was an all-white creative team, book writer, lyrics, music. And, you know, I had suggestions, obviously, to some of the material because it wasn't realistic. It wasn't, first of all, I would never be anyone that you would mistake for being 1/4 Black. Like, I'm clearly Black. Like, I was like, just the fact that you've cast me in this role is not realistic, especially for what the story was supposed to be. But it was like, they didn't care. And so I get what Amber was saying about not feeling heard. I gave them like several notes and like changes that I thought should be made, and it was like they didn't care. So to your point, Michael, I'm hoping that this awakening or whatever it is, all these letters we're getting from all these emails we're getting from all these companies and about how things are going to change, I'm hoping that when we do speak up and say something in these rooms that where we aren't being represented behind the table, hopefully our words will have more weight going forward, because I've been in several situations where I've been told, oh, you don't look African enough by like a white casting director or whatever the kid, you know, and it's like, how do you know who looks what? Like African people come in all colors, just like American people come in all colors. So, you know,
there are shadier parts of Africa as well. So let's just
everywhere.
Okay. Let's just.
So I'm really hoping that because of these, you know, like your coalition that you've started, or like the Black Theater Artists United, or all of these organizations, that will be more supported when we're in these rooms. And hopefully these rooms will become, especially when you're telling a story about Black people where race is an issue, that more of an effort will be made to have more representation behind the table so that we can be really more of a collaborative thing.
Yes.
It's so interesting. Like what I'm hearing, like the common thread between these two stories is the fact that you had a white creative team and they initially went to a Deborah Cox, an India Irene. Initially, they went to someone who has an album or someone who has a quote unquote quote name, as opposed to actually doing the work to find talent, to cultivate that talent, to support the talent that is already out there. And there is so much talent out there. And so like, even to hear stories that Amber says about her thinking she had to be a certain way, it's absolutely nuts. If anyone has heard Amber sing, that is like the craziest thing I could ever.
Craziest thing
I've ever heard. So, you know, and that just says, so that speaks volumes. And so when we're talking about these things, like for me, I think the hardest part about being a Black leading lady in a pretty wide season is the fact that I've had so many issues of trying to find my power and to stand in that power and to know my worth and to stand in that worth and know that I may be alone in that and know that I may have to walk away from things in order to like get what I should be owed because of what my white counterparts get or what, you know, other white leading ladies get. And a lot of people know I walked away from Tina initially because I was like, well, you can't do that. You just can't. You sing 20 plus songs in the show. You're gonna get beat up. You can't do that.
But God, because you do it.
It's like the fact that I had to be shaken in my boots, being like, I just lost my job. I just lost everything that I worked for a year and a half in London. I just gave that up because they're not going to offer me what I deserve. That shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be walking around shaking about trying to stand up for what we deserve. Mm-hmm. And that's something that has to change. Hopefully in this awakening, it will be changed. These conversations are being had, but I'm ready to talk action now. And, you know, it's one step at a time when you're a Black leading woman.
And just to think, Adrienne, if you didn't have that wherewithal to know your worth and to demand it, like that just, whoo, child, that's
But I didn't. That's the thing. It's like my team had to tell me, trust us. And I had to be like, if you mess this up for me, my dad is never going to speak to me again. I just lost a job. Like, this is over. He'll never let me do theater again. So we have to have people who also believe in you. Surround yourself with friends and a team that believes in your power as a black performer. Like, you have to have people, because then they help you find your own power. Right.
Exactly. Well, also, don't you feel like, don't you all feel like this is the moment where, because people, like, it's been interesting to sort of find out how people are like, so the awakening is happening for a lot of folks. Well, obviously, this has been something we've dealt with all our lives, but there's an interesting thing where people are surprised that folks of color have never really felt empowered to speak up, to talk. And I find that that's very interesting in this moment, because it's surprising to people who are not of color that we have felt not empowered to do that. And even on this level, even on a level of Broadway at the top of the game, being the leading lady of a show, and what that feels like, and not feeling empowered to actually speak up.
Yeah, I mean, you feel pressure that you have to be perfect and you have to be on your P's and Q's. And I'm sure whose parents didn't tell them you have to work twice as hard to get half as far, or whatever, Like, everyone's parents has told them that in this group. And, sometimes you feel like when you're the only one in a room, like somebody's just waiting for you to act a fool, so it's, you have to be even that much more, like Barack Obama as president, he was like, so like, he could not even frown, or they'd be like, "What, angry black man?" So it is a lot of pressure, especially when you're in those rooms where you're the token sometimes, or you're the only one.
And it's exhausting. I think about times when I've been in a room and something happens, and I go, "You gonna say something?" You right. God dang it, I gotta do it again. I always want to be the one. I want to sit in the corner and eat chips sometimes. But it's like,
you and these chips.
I want to eat. It's that thing. It's like, we don't want to do this. Like, when people ask me about advocacy work, I'm like, none of us actually want to be doing this. We have to. We have to, because it is our responsibility. We have to, because I can't sleep at night knowing that my sister or brother can't go to work in a space that is equitable, where they feel safe and heard and don't feel oppressed or depressed. Like, it's such a heavy burden. And it's when you said, people are so surprised, it's like, but what would make them think that we have been empowered? What about the institution? What makes you think that anyone has ever empowered us to feel welcome, to feel heard, to feel like we matter? When you look at it from the top down, who owns it, who runs it, who green lights it, why would we feel that way?
Well, Hamilton happened, so now everything is.
That's what 2016 happened, and we were talking about diversity, and we were like, we did it! No, you didn't.
No.
All the black shows were on one street. We were all on 45th. It was one street.
And then that's why we talk about the black shows that were actually telling black narratives.
Like, come on, was down the street. That's where all the black. Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
So, well, that is exactly. Yes, that's exactly. I'm like living for all of this right now, and I knew it would be explosive, like in a wonderful way, to have the three of you come together to talk about it. But what I love about it is that it's so real, and I'm watching the three of you like literally look at each other, and then something enlightening you as personally being like, well, yes, and this, which I love, and it's so important that we have that, because there's so many people who are not, have not been able to be a leading lady yet on Broadway, and they want that so bad. And it's a very interesting thing right now to look up to you all and to see what that is like for them, and what you all have been going through and what you are fighting to have change. So I'm thrilled for that. Amber, I want to ask you about so your mom is an actress.
Yeah.
And I love that you gave me a
It's habit. I'm sorry.
So your mom is an actress, and you grew up around the Atlanta theater scene, which I love, and you talked about that. But tell me about the lessons that you took from your own mother and these other incredible Black actors you grew up with, who inspired you, as you went into the world as a professional actor yourself.
I think the biggest blessing that I received was the way I think about theater and the industry is way more realistic than most people. My mother is an actor, which means I knew what it was like when she was working and when she was unemployed. I knew when we could go out and have big meals and big trips. And then I also knew the day when I was like, I want chicken nuggets from Wendy's. And she said, we have to pull back right now. I knew what that meant. Being a successful working actor had nothing to do with billboards, had nothing to do with bright lights. I admired my mother because she worked hard. And I knew the level of sacrifice that it took. I knew that she was very selective in the types of roles that she took on. We had an understanding, me being an only child, she always said if I kept my grades up, I could go with her wherever she went. So she always made space for me. Rarely did she leave me behind unless she had to. So I was able to travel with her and see what working at the Goodman in Chicago was when I was 12 years old. She did an episode of Kenan and Kel when I was 10, and I got to go to Universal Studios and hang out with Kenan and Kel, and everyone at school hated me for 2 months. Because
do you know that I was Keenan's stand-in when I grew up growing up in Orlando, Florida? I grew up in Orlando. I just had to throw that at you.
But so when I thought about what it meant to be a working actor, it had nothing to do with some of the things, the fame part of it. I knew that my father had to work every day to make sure that he could support an actor and then 2 actors. I understood, my mother, she didn't discourage me, but when I was a kid, she put me in acting, singing, and dancing, but then she also put me in science and math classes. So I was always doing 25 things. So she knew if I got to the point that I wanted to go left, I was prepared. If I wanted to go right, I was prepared. I didn't realize it as a kid, but I got to sit in rooms and watch some of the greatest artists who I didn't know until I was older had all been in New York and worked on Broadway, but just moved back to Atlanta for a better quality of life. I started Googling people as I got out of college. People had known all my life and been like, she was in Marianne. She's a Tony nominee. I had no clue what I grew up in. That was my norm. Well, this was Auntie Carol and Auntie this and Auntie Crystal. And I didn't know that they had all gone off and worked on Broadway and all been through it and understood what that lifestyle was. And then came back to Atlanta to get married and have kids and do that. So I feel like I don't even fully understand all the wisdom and knowledge and all of the love that was poured into me as a kid. Because I was always by myself in an audition room or in a rehearsal room when I was 6. Just that was my life. That was all I knew. And I'm grateful for that because I feel like it grounds me in a different way. I understand what's actually important. I understand a lot of this frou-frou. It's that doesn't matter. I think growing up in those rooms made me always want to be the best craftsman and skill. I just wanted to tell good stories. I wanted to be an excellent storyteller. That's all I've ever really wanted to do because I grew up watching women who that was their goal. How can I craft this story? How can I paint this picture with my voice? How can I tell this story in a way that hasn't been told before? Those were my goals. I never had those dreams. I never had posters on my wall. I was like, wherever I am, I just want to be really good at whatever it is I'm doing. So I am really grateful for my mother instilling those things in me, making sure I understood what it meant to be an actor. She wanted me to be an actuary or an architect because she wanted me to make money. My father wanted to be the first female major league pitcher. He wanted a son, clearly. But they both made sure I had everything I needed to be successful. So I am eternally grateful.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's wonderful to hear. Nikki, your career has taken you obviously so many places, and you roles that aren't usually played by women of color. I feel like you have as Adrienne was saying, you're one of the people who I feel like have really been you paved that way and that sort of narrative of really breaking down those boundaries for women of color in our business, and I feel like you always do it with such grace. And so I now that you're doing the Sondheim show, and that's another show that it's a new gender bending, highly anticipated revival, of course, company, you playing Jenny. And I'm curious because what are you looking forward to most in having a Black woman's voice now being part of the Sondheim Broadway legacy, and why do you think it's taken so long to happen?
I guess this would be my first role on Broadway that I didn't understudy, that was originated by a white actor and has mostly been played by white actors. So this production is completely different in that I'm Jenny, but I'm doing really David, and David is really doing the Jenny lines in this production. So it's also like switched sex-wise, but I think it's great. I think that diversity in Sondheim shows should be happening more. This show is set in New York City in 2020. So of course there should be people have friends of all races, and that should be shown on the stage. So I'm grateful to be sort of a representative of that. I also love that Rashidra, who plays Susan, her character and my character are very different, so it's not like these are the Black chicks, it's like, we make like completely different character choices and have been supported in that, which is really good. Also, I'm understudying Bobby, which is exciting to me. And
excuse me.
Yeah, and so even just watching, and Katrina is an amazing actress, obviously, but watching her do the role, and like as a Black woman playing this role in this production, my idea of what it will be completely different from her, just from being a Black woman who's climbed at the top of the corporate ladder in 2020 and is living in New York and is
Black woman. Are you giving me make me alive?
Why wasn't it like this in the first place?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that any actress is a great role for any actress, but I think especially as a Black woman getting to eventually go on and do it will be a really exciting experience as well.
Just make sure you
let us know.
Bring us a text.
I'm like, yes, I feel like we are all like, we're all gonna be out of our shows that night because everyone's gonna be at company. Like, and there's like literally the first.
I ain't got a job. I'll hold y'all feet.
You're not supposed to tell them.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I think, there have been a lot of shows. Like I saw some statistic that said out of the 37 shows that were playing on Broadway at the time of the Corona stop, 7 of them had no people of color in them, which is funny because I think so many white actors tend to think, oh, well, Hamilton is here now. And company has like 3 Black people in it. So it's all good now, and it's like, no, there's still a lot more of a need for representation. And I think in shows where it's not a period piece that's about race, there needs to be representation. And so I'm happy to be a part of that ushering forward, because I remember when I was 16 and I got that Carousel soundtrack and Audra was in it, and I opened that CD booklet and saw someone that looked like me and sang like me, that like fueled me going forward of always try, even if you don't think you're what they're looking for, if they'll see you, try to get in there and try to do it.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, diversity is very different from inclusivity. So that's a whole other situation that I think is a lost in translation that I think immediately people go to that of course it's diverse. It's more diverse. Sure, Broadway is more diverse, but it's an inclusive. And so where are we really in that? So that's a bigger thing. Now for Adrienne,
not meeting the quota, but just
right.
More diverse than 1902. I mean, that's not
right.
What are you saying?
I'm like,
we were parking cars. What do you say?
Sure, we're more diverse. Sure.
Look at the stories that we're telling too. Like, let's talk about Black narratives.
Hello.
well.
So Adrienne, so you were a leading lady at a very young age, and and Bring It On, how does that? I'm curious about, for you, how does that compare to now, and what were some of those discoveries you were able to bring along with you now in such an iconic, Black woman role, arguably one of the most famous definitely one of the most famous Black women in history, but not only as the actor, but as an actual leading lady, like in the company.
I think there's never been a moment where I haven't been nervous or scared about being a leading woman. I think people assume when you walk in the room that you got your confidence, you got your wits about you, and you're just doing the thing. Well, the truth is, I go into every room focusing on my work. And the most ironic thing about my career thus far is every job I've done on Broadway, I've been asked to do something I've never done before in my life. So, Bring It On was like, learn to be a cheerleader, jump, backflip, stand on people's hands and belt a high C. Was like, do Savion Glover's choreography, George C. Wolfe, sing Sasha McDonald. What do you mean? and then Tina's like, sing a million songs and get beat up, don't get hurt. I've literally been terrified in every single leading woman role. So I come into the room and all I'm doing is trying to do the best I can, honest to God, because I know most of the times when I come into the room, I've done so much training beforehand because I've been asked to do something I've never done before. And so I have to approach it in that way first. And then when you're okay, and on top of that, you have to be a leader and be there and advocate for your cast and do all these other things. And so, it's been interesting because I've just watching Audra during Shuffle. I've only been in 3 Broadway shows. My career is like a baby. I'm still going. And so watching Audra was such a masterclass for me because I remember, I feel like I'm dealing with imposter syndrome during so much of my career. Every time I'm like, why am I here? And having to prove why I'm here to myself first. And then to actually stand in that power. But watching Audra and watch her analyze a role and watch her ask all the questions and watching her in the way in which she treats her cast, that was
advocates for us.
And how she advocates for her, that was unbelievably informative for me. And I've just done my best to just be the best leading woman I can by actually being a good person. Really at the end of the day, it's people respect you, you respect them, you advocate for your cast, be there for them, if they need you. And, I can only just do the best that I can, but it is it's a learning process every time. And we're just trying to be in there to do our work, do my job, let alone be the president of the cast.
I love that. That's yes. It's been now, Amber, that's actually that kind of ties into you because you obviously and Adrienne did Shuffle Along together, and you not only originated some roles in the company, you also understudied the Black leading lady of Black leading ladies, Audra McDonald. So
the performance that no one will ever see.
We have to do that duet.
Oh my gosh. But I'm curious because what Adrienne was saying, obviously, and Nikki, I know that you've spoke about this in interviews as well about, with Porgy and Bess, learning from Audra and just having that, just how special that was for you. So Amber, I love this, the through line of Audra.
That's the whole lesson of this whole thing. Just be
and she wonders about people who's the queen. I'm get out of here.
Come on. So, but for you, what, Amber, did you, what did you learn from what you took from that experience, specifically, having to cover Audra and being ready to, to go on? What was that like for you?
Here's the funny thing is we did 2 labs. And at some point I had a stroke and I asked to audition to cover. I don't remember the stroke, but clearly I had one because I asked for this. And I remember I was so enamored with her. I've looked back at my phone and there's so many secret pictures that I took of Audra because I couldn't believe we were working. And I just got so many terrible angles, blurry of me just in the corner, like.
I have notes like Audra said this.
I mean, every day.
You got your voice memo app out, like.
Yes. So much terrible footage of Audra, but. I mean, Adrienne, I don't know if you remember, like one of the first labs, she like was on a vocal something and she just never spoke above a 3. Like never. She just kind of marked for, and I was like, she is magic. Like she isn't proving anything to anyone. And I remember she said to me, she was like, Amber, you're in the room. You don't have to keep auditioning. And I was like, bitch. But I was like, I mean, she just said that to me. And every now and then she would just say something that would just blow my mind. And I remember something about watching her during those 2 labs, I was like, you know what? I want to try. I want to see if they'll just even have me. I honestly didn't think I would get it. I just wanted the opportunity to stand in the room and just try to sing the songs and just try to be as rich and honest and pure and raw as she was. She inspired me to do a foolish thing, to ask to. She's a terrible person. But I remember like George was so open and he was like, sure, yeah, absolutely. And I auditioned and he was like, okay, it's yours. And then the responsibility. And I said, oh my God. And like we would be in previews or in tech. And if I was on the stage, I was downstairs learning the tap steps. And mind you, I took tap when I was 5 and didn't even own tap shoes when we started rehearsal. Yeah. Dance call for Shuffle Along. No dance call. When the people said I was tapping, I said, that's a lie. So here learning tap, like for real, but now learning what Audra did. And then every night I'm on stage with her trying to be in character, but watching her with my other eye, trying to like it was such a beautiful thing because I mean, Audra, I think I was introduced to Audra when I was 13 and someone gave me one of her albums and it just like this Black woman being, period. Like this Black woman being her most authentic self, the voice, the energy, everything about her just made me want to be better. And so that opportunity to cover her, I was like, this is my opportunity to be better. I just want to be better. Even and knowing that I wasn't the first cover, knowing that I may never go on, but every rehearsal, every time I was learning those steps, learning that music, I was like, Audra inspired me to be better. And this is my chance to be better. So I'm always a little sad that I never got to go on because she said she would have come and sat in the back with a baseball cap on.
And you know she would have.
But that was such a beautiful opportunity to just kind of be in her shadow and just to feel like I was just that close to greatness. That's all.
And like watching how she works, which is like,
it's a masterclass.
Yeah.
It's a complete masterclass.
That's literally the only reason I got Tony nomination. I just copied everything she did.
Which I forgot to put in your intro because you were totally dominant. Right, I forgot to put that up in there. Hello. Okay. You know. Now, Nikki, I have because we're now this sort of kind of ties into now with like the fact that you're a mom and Audra's a mom as well, and I am curious. Like, you're a mother of 2 gorgeous little girls, and I feel like moms, whether or not they actually are the leading ladies of the company, become the natural leaders, a lot of the time. It's just kind of how it is, right?
Yeah.
So how has being a mother changed the way you operate as a leading woman to your company?
I mean, first of all, since I've had kids, I feel like I've become just such a better performer because you just don't have as much time to worry about yourself and get worked up during the day, like about the performance at night, because you have so many other things that you're trying to do that when you get to the theater, it's almost like this break where you can just do it instead of, I struggled with stage fright and anxiety and all that kind of thing. And so once I had kids, it was easier to kind of put that aside. But also I'm like usually the deputy in the show because
obviously
I just like being able to help people that are having a problem, whether it's on stage or off. People that are younger than me, I really love, helping younger women, especially younger Black women. Like in Hamilton, there were a couple that I was like, come under my wing. Come here, under this wing. And let me help you. Because it just, as a mom, you realize everyone is someone's child. And you want to help everyone succeed even in like my motto in this business is always run your own race. Like you're not really in competition with anyone because everyone is bringing something different to the table, even if you're auditioning for the same role. So
say that again. Why don't you tell the church, tell the congregation again, please. Please tell the congregation again.
Yeah, you gotta run your own race and do you. And so I just try to help everyone succeed because we're all in this together, right?
Yes, I love that. That's yes. So what? But before I ask the last question, that's like I want the three of you to answer. Amber and Adrienne. So you guys started part of the fierce, incredible group of artists who started the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, and it really is such a wonderful thing that has come out of something that's a lot that we all have dealt with, and in this moment of awakening that is happening, there was a 3-day forum that was so beautifully done that BAC did. It was so wonderful, and actually Atu Blanks and Blood came on. He was part of the first panel here, and right before you all started, which was so wonderful to get to chat a little bit about it. But I'm curious, from you all, like what were the challenges that you faced specifically, in sort of coming up this moment that you guys got together to just discuss, and as you were doing Shuffle Along, where BAC was sort of born, what was that for you all? Was there a specific moment that inspired? Was there a specific, what was going on? I'm curious. Go ahead, Adrienne. I see you.
Amber tell the story because Amber is the culprit. But I will say, all we did was we realized that there was something missing in a community that called us their own. And we realized that there was something missing. What was missing is support for Black bodies. And that's literally it. And we just got like-minded people together. And nobody was fancy at the time. We were literally just like together doing a show together and had a conversation. And this is what happened. Go, Amber.
Literally, I was on one of those websites and it said that a busload of our Broadway performers were going down to Florida for the Pulse nightclub shooting. And I was like, oh my God, that is so amazing. And you know how you're in a show and you miss things. And I was like, let me Google all the Broadway for Black Lives Matter events that I've missed. And I went on Google and I was like, search engine empty. Nothing is happening. Because that's pretty on brand for Broadway. And I was so mad. I was so angry that I wrote an angry Facebook message like I sometimes do. Broadway for Trader Joe's and it's Broadway for Shark Week. Where's Broadway for Black Lives Matter? I literally wrote that. And I walked away. And when I came back, it had been shared 2,000 times. And there were so many text messages. And what really struck me in that moment was I didn't want to do anything. I was just mad that my community wasn't doing anything. I did not set out to be an activist. I didn't set out to plan an event. I was just so mad that whenever it's a different group, whenever it's someone else, Broadway is on it immediately. And when it's us, it's crickets. That's all. Like I that's what that message was for. That's what I was trying to say. Is like, why don't you care about us? Shows are built on our backs. You bring us here and you parade us around and we make you all this money and people are dying every day and you've done nothing. We stand in those hallways and we hold those red buckets and we say those speeches that you write. We do all of these things and all I wanted was my community to show up for me. And I think that was the hardest part about planning that event is we're planning it and we don't want to. We didn't want to have to do that. We did it because there was a need and because it was no one else was. And there were times when it was so exhausting. There was times when we just wanted to go to work. There were times we were in that theater. Mind you, we had our closing notice. We were about to be unemployed. We planned for Black Lives Matter in the last week of Shuffle Along. So Black men are being killed. We're trying to figure out how we're going to eat next week. Like, it was just so much to try and do. And then we have no experience building an organization, a coalition, planning an event. It was so much stress and pressure. But the most beautiful thing is people saw us. People heard us, and when I say people came out of nowhere, money just started coming, resources started coming, people just started giving of themselves, and I'm so grateful for that. I will never forget, Brenton Smith was the original culprit because he always came in my dressing room when I was trying to get dressed because he's an annoying person, and Adrienne and I shared a wall of dressing rooms, and one day Adrienne yelled in the dressing room, I don't know what y'all planning, She didn't come next door. She just yelled. She would always yell through the wall. And it was just, that was such a beautiful moment because it was literally the birth of community. It was literally us coming together, identifying a need and saying, how can we help? How can we give back? So it was incredibly challenging, and I can't even believe that we're here 4 years later, but I'm so glad that we came together to give our community what no one else is willing to give us, which was just a platform. It was an opportunity to be seen, heard, and affirmed. It was acknowledging what's going on outside of this theater. I think somebody said one day, like, I could leave this theater and not come to work tomorrow. I could be a George Floyd. I could be a Tamir Rice, and my community doesn't even care enough. So it came, born out of a lot of frustration, but I'm glad that we're here.
But the beautiful thing is, like, anybody can do it. We literally made a nonprofit I bought a nonprofit for dummies book. That's literally, we're sitting at a table trying to figure this out on our own.
Yep.
So anybody and everybody can do that. It just takes community and talking to one another.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for fighting to the finish line of even just getting it started, because like you said, it's hard. I mean, you don't want to have to do that, especially when you just want people to like support you. But I'm thankful for you all, and thankful for the work that you all are doing and are continuing to do. And I mean, at this point, enlightening thousands of people, who participated in the forums and just all of that's been going on. So that is a beautiful thing. And we are very thankful for the work that you all are doing, and looking forward to more of it. Which is yes. So my last question for you all, the three of you, that I'd like to just chat about and get your views on, sort of as we close out today, specifically, is what do you want to take with you from this time of awakening, and this sort of in the middle of this pandemic to post-pandemic, when Broadway comes back? What do you want to take? What do you want to take with you? What do you want to be? Adrienne, you said, you want about action, like that's you're like talking about like what's going on. Like, it's lovely to chat and all those things, and I'm with you. I'm like, great. What are we doing? So I'm curious from the three of you, your perspectives, because I think that they're very important. What you want post pandemic, COVID-19, new hashtag Broadway, the great bright way, as Whoopi started to talk. What do you want to take with you? What do you want?
I mean, I personally just want to feel more empowered to, if I'm the only voice in the room, so be it, if something happens, to address it like immediately, and be the person that, instead of trying to sort of just go along to get along, I want to be more vocal, and hold people more accountable, even though that shouldn't be my job. I want to myself to be a little bit more proactive about just holding people accountable for when things are said or done that are racist or inappropriate in any way. I want to address it head on in that moment, instead of sort of letting it roll off my back, but not letting it become like a kink in my neck.
Yes. Where you have your PT to get it out, your 20-minute time up slot to get it out.
No, not the 20-minute slot. I forgot about that.
Okay. I love that. Yes.
I'll go next. I want our community to get uncomfortable, and I want us to get really uncomfortable, because the only way we can actually make real change, and we're talking about systemic change, individual changes within individuals, is if we're uncomfortable and we start unlearning, and we start taking these ways in which we see the world, and we start widening those views and those lenses. And I want Broadway to get uncomfortable, in the sense that I want Broadway to look out into the community in which you serve and see how you can be of service. This is a commercial run community. Why are we not helping our community, the community that we're in, New York City? I want Broadway to see Black and brown creatives. I want them to see and hear Black narratives. I want them to look at the repertoire that has been forgotten over years and years of Black writers and wasn't supported. And I want them to support us. I want them to see us and hear us and support us. And also, I want us to support ourselves.
That's it. That's what I want.
That's it. I want us to support ourselves and know that we have the power and the tools to be producers. All you got to do is ask somebody. We have the powers and tools to be creators. All you got to do is pick up a pen and start writing. You have everything you need. I am a strong believer that everything you need is within you already.
You know, I got a bracelet that you gave me.
And I gave her a bracelet that says that exact thing because she does too. And I really want us to start seeing ourselves as the royalty that we are.
Literally,
yes.
Adrienne took my answer, and I'm going to say the other side, which is what I was thinking, is that let's say it doesn't stick. Let's say things don't change. I want us to take care of each other. You know, we all worked at places where there were probably people in the building who were racist, who didn't care, who never have to care, who have the privilege of they don't have to change, they don't have to care, they'll be fine. And if that is what it is, when we get back to work, I want us to be able to look at each other in the face and say, Adrienne, I got you. Nikki Renée Daniels, I got you. I'm here for you, sis. I am present. What do you need? Who do you need? You trying to write a book? What you need? You need an editor? I don't know nobody who edits, but I know somebody who can find somebody who edits. Well, I want us to start communicating and creating community, because I think that is what I can hope things for them, but my mission and my goal is for us. I want us to come together, and I want us to be stronger and more resilient. I want us to stand up for each other. I want us to really start pooling our resources and working together. So I have huge lofty dreams for us as a complete industry, but what I want more than anything is for us to finally come together and start working together towards a common goal, which is success for everybody in whatever shape, fashion, form it looks like. Whatever you want to be, sis, how can I pour into you? How can I empower you, equip you with what you need? We're the most talented people ever. We know everybody. We can get things done. And I think, no shade to anyone, but you know what I'm saying. There is nothing that we cannot do. And so I hope we come out of this pandemic with a new language, a new way we speak to each other, a new way we listen, a new way we communicate with each other. And I feel like the possibilities are endless.
I love it. Yes. Every panel I do, every time I do a panel, there's always a moment where literally we could just go right into lift every voice. And literally that was the moment right at the end. Like, but for me, it was specifically I wanted to be like, sing song. Like, and that was the moment for me and for this panel. Y'all, I am so grateful and thankful for the three of you gorgeous Black women sharing today and sharing your truth and being yes, there we are.
I'm look as good as you.
I just am so thankful for you all being so open and honest, being able to share today. And on a platform like Broadway.com, it's so important for the audience who have never gotten to hear this outside of just, being fans of yours. And I think that is really beautiful and so important. And I am grateful that you three, which I had a suspicion that you would give us your hearts and your souls. And you did. And it was just so beautifully said. And as hard as this time is and this awakening that is happening, there's also something beautiful that is happening, because I think it feels different in the sense that there is something coming together. There's togetherness that's going on, and we have no excuse at this moment now when we move forward within ourselves in terms of holding each other accountable to stand together. So thank you all, truly thank you all for coming on and chatting and speaking, and so that all the other lovely ladies after you who are literally looking at like what they can do, how they can be a part of this big thing called Broadway as a Black woman, how it can happen and how it can be done with grace. So thank you all. Thank you.
Good to see you all.
So good to see y'all. Hopefully we'll get to see you in person when it's all. I'm like, can we please see each other soon in person?
Wear your masks, everybody.
Wear your masks. We can kiki on 9th Avenue, but wear your mask. You know. Okay, at a Reba, wear your mask. Oh my gosh. I just love it. Thank you all. They are so wonderful. Caitlin, where you at, girl? Where you at?
I'm right here. I'm learning. I just kept thinking about the way that the three of them and, kept talking about Audra and her importance to their story. Other people are going to be talking that way about them three.
About them, exactly.
Yeah, about them. So thank you for moderating such an excellent panel. I love learning and listening and just learning how to be a better ally for you guys. It's the best thing ever.
Thank you, love. I will see you later. Love y'all, Broadway.com. Bye, Miss Caitlin. Mwah.
Thank you guys so much for watching another incredible roundtable discussion hosted by Michael James Scott. You guys can follow along wherever you get your podcasts by searching for hashtag #LiveAt5 and hitting that subscribe button. You guys, we're taking the rest of the week off, but be sure to tune in next week. We got some brand new Live at 5 Home Edition episodes coming your way. In the meantime, stay safe, wear a mask, please. Wear a mask when you go outside and stay 6 feet away from each other. See y'all next week.